few weeks back, I joined the GMTK Game Jam with the goal of making a game from scratch in 4 days. All games had to adhere to the jam's theme, loop. And as open-ended as that is, I kept coming back to the physical idea of a loop, like a hula hoop or a hamster wheel. That, paired with my desire to make a game that was super small and simple, led me to the idea of making a one screen per level puzzle game. I thought of Sugar Sugar, a flash game where sugar falls from the end of a comma, and your goal is to draw lines guiding it to the various cups around the screen to fill them up before the sugar runs out. What if I did something like that, but with rings and rails? But as much as I liked the idea, I wasn't sure how easily I could actually do it. See, Godot and most game physics engines to my knowledge don't like when a moving object has a non-convex collider. It's far more demanding to compute the collisions, so the engines typically aren't designed to facilitate it, which often leads to unexpected and chaotic results when you attempt to do so. Godot immediately throws a warning when you add a non-convex collider to a rigid body, so step 1 was to instead use multiple colliders made out of a series of thin cylinder shapes. That way, each individual collider is convex. I don't think this makes the physics any less error-prone, but it does get rid of the warning. My initial test went fine. The loop slid down the railing normally enough, but the physics was still far from ideal. The friction was too high, the momentum was too low, and the erratic twisting made the movement unpredictable. To simplify this, I locked certain axes to prevent the loop from spinning or sliding the wrong way, and then set friction to 0 to ensure the smoothest possible slide. And this was a good start. Not perfect, but good. But for the moment, I wanted to focus on my next challenge, drawing on screen. Well, aren't I lucky that the very last game I finished also had on-screen drawing? The difference was that this was in 3D. Well, aren't I lucky that the second to last game I finished was almost all about drawing in 3D? So I already knew how to do some things, like get the 3D mouse position and draw a procedural mesh. Despite this, instead of simply copying over the code, I randomly decided to re-research procedural mesh generation in Godot from scratch. It's a good thing too, because at some point while Googling, this video caught my eye. And from it, I learned that I actually don't need to manually program a procedural mesh because the path tool has that feature built in. All I had to do was add a CSG polygon and create an outline. From there, the path did all of the actual procedural stuff. But I didn't want to totally miss out on the fun, so I created an editor tool that generates a circle for the CSG mesh based on some number of points and a radius. Then I did the same thing, but for the colliders on the loop. And then I learned that when instancing a node in the editor, you have to not only assign it a parent, but also an owner in order for it to show up. I now had a tool that could automatically change the resolution of the meshes. And playing with this showed me just how finicky the physics were. Even the smallest tweak could turn a perfectly normal sliding donut into a bouncy bobber. Now it was time for the actual drawing part. I considered a few different ways that drawing could work in this game, but most of them felt a little overcomplicated for what I was going for. So I went with my typical drawing approach. Every frame, while the mouse button is pressed, the game checks how far the mouse has moved since its last point. And if it's made it beyond some arbitrary threshold, a new point is added. Simple and effective. But this still left me with an issue to solve. If the drawing distance was too big, it created sharp edges that the torus could catch on. But if it was too small, then the line became bumpy and performance went out the window. To fix this, I kept the longer distance, but took advantage of the in and out handles that each point on the curve came with. With these, I could easily control the curvature of the line at each point. As for where they should go, I wasn't super sure. But here's what I tried. I get the positions of the most recent point on the line, the second most recent point on the line, and the mouse. Then I get the direction from the second most recent point to the mouse, and set each handle's position to that direction at a magnitude of half the distance between the accompanying points. This seemed to work well enough, aside from some big swooping curves that didn't always look quite right. There's probably a better solution, but this worked well enough. The main mechanics of the game were coming together, but all this had taken up 3 of the 4 days. The jam was nearing its end, and I still wasn't sure exactly what this game was. I knew I wanted loops that followed drawn rails, and that the goal was to get them from point A to point B, but I had no idea how this game should look. I just knew that I wanted something simple, and that's when I had an epiphany. Oh, hold on. You know the ring stack game? Upon remembering those old Rocky Stack toys, I realized that I wanted a woodwork aesthetic. One of my favorites, and convenient for a 4-day game jam because of how easy it is to find wood textures online. I just searched around CC0 websites, collected any that caught my eye, spent way too long trying to import them, and then played around with different materials on different surfaces until I got a result that I was happy with. But then I saw the wooden loop sliding along the metal railing, and despite having only a couple hours left and exactly one level, I thought to myself, I need to add sound. So I grabbed the nearest wooden object and recorded it sliding against the nearest metal object. I wanted the volume of the slide and hit to change based on the velocity, but I also wanted to keep all possible values within a certain range so that I wouldn't end up with anything unexpectedly loud. This is the curve I came up with that would solve this problem. This is velocity, this is volume. The higher the velocity, the louder it gets. But it never exceeds max volume. I wasn't sure exactly how to obtain the formula for this though. So I called up my good friend Derek at 7 in the morning and asked him to do it.
Alright, I think I made it. Ooh, y is equal to x over x plus 1. And that should be almost exactly what you need.
I had just 3 hours left. It was time to make levels. Luckily for me, the me from the day before was kind enough to design 6 levels in Paint before heading to bed, so all I had to do was bring them to life. Constructing and adding levels didn't take too much time, since I had already set up a system for managing and switching between levels, but I also wanted to playtest the levels to make sure that they were actually possible, and that took some time. Partially because I wasn't very good at my own game, but mostly because all of the remaining quirks in the physics decided to strike at the worst possible time. The loops would constantly get snagged on non-existent lips or start jittering when they interacted with other physics bodies, which would ruin what would have otherwise been a successful solve. Each time this happened, I had to restart the level all over and meticulously redraw everything. All of this tedious testing and my attempts to fix the problem led me right up to the deadline. I zipped up my game and uploaded it with less than a minute to go, but right as I was about to submit, the site froze and I missed it. Fortunately for me, other people were having issues with the site, and everyone was given an extra hour to submit. Now, the jam explicitly stated that with that extra time, I should not add more content, and instead use that time to ensure that my game is working properly and entered correctly. But one could argue that the game, although working, was not working properly, and I felt it was my duty to make the game as proper as it could be. The first fix that I added was an undo button, which of course did not work on the first try and immediately ate away at my dev time. But those physics were still ticking me off, so I added another button, undo all, and changed how the level reload button worked. Instead of deleting all the lines and resetting the scene, it just resets the scene. That way, instead of redrawing everything each time, you could test your arrangement and then go back to make fine additions to your lines if need be. Next, I decided to—
Oh my goodness, look at the time already.
I had 6 minutes left of my bonus hour and I still hadn't submitted. In fact, because of the mess I'd made during my additions, I wasn't even sure that the game worked properly. Sure enough, it didn't, and I was forced to make a bunch of quick edits to ensure the game progressed as intended. 10:58 and I was exporting. 10:59 and I was uploading. I set the project as public and saved. I refreshed the jam page, clicked submit, found my project and quickly realized that, oh, yep, there are text fields. Of course there are. And I did not have time to fill them out. I scrolled past and clicked submit, but I was redirected to the first fill-in at the top. I could see that the time was 11, but maybe it would give me leeway because I had the submission page open.
Godot, on.
I clicked submit. I remember the first time I missed a game jam. It felt awful, but this was the first time I had ever double missed a game jam, and I felt like an idiot. So I sat in silence, playing through my game, but after a while, a realization dawned on me. I'm so glad the game wasn't shared in this state. I quit my sulking and went back to fixing the game. First by doing something that I should have done from the get-go, switching to the Jolt physics engine. For those who don't know, Godot comes with 2 physics engines. Godot Physics 3D, the one that I've been using, and Jolt, a physics engine that actually works right out of the box. Wow! All of those physics issues that I've been meticulously trying to avoid, gone in 2 clicks. 3 if you count the restart. Over the next few days, I tidied up the game, made some minor improvements, and released it properly. It was 6 levels long, slightly bare bones, a little bit hard, but kind of fun. It's also something that could easily be expanded if I wanted to. While making this game, I explored a number of different aspects of the Godot engine that I hadn't really dealt with much before. I looked into the procedural mesh generation options beyond the basics that I learned from when I made Ravenous. I wrote an editor tool that could automatically export packed scenes in the case of the levels. I messed with lighting and rendering to create something that looked good while still being reasonably performant on web. This game didn't take long to make, was fun to make, and taught me a lot. I had another realization not long after the event finished. I may have lost the jam, twice, but I gained a game. In 4 days, I created a video game. Sometimes I forget how cool that is. Not only that, I think it's a good game. And it's been a while since I made a jam game that I really thought was good. I hope you like it too. The game is free to play on itch, and I'll have a link in the description. Ciao for now.